to UE TV. My name is Farhana Bulbulia, Communications Analyst for the United Nations Resident Coordinator's Office for Barbados and the OECS. Today I'm joined by my colleague Shari Innes Grant, Coordination Analyst for Barbados and the OECS, and our featured guest, Muriel Mafico, Deputy Representative for UNICEF Eastern Caribbean Area. Welcome.
Thank you.
Today, we want to talk about International Day of the Girl Child. And Muriel, I hope we can begin by you telling us a bit about this day.
Well, the global international community decided to set aside this day, the 11th of October, as a day for focusing global attention, community-level attention, national attention on issues affecting girls globally. So it's been commemorated since 2012, and every year there's a different theme that people get to focus on, and it has really been a rallying call to draw global attention to issues that affect girls all over the world.
And can you tell us a bit about this year's theme?
So this year's theme is a very interesting one. It is looking at girls as a skilled workforce. It's a theme, I think, that recognizes that globally we've all invested a lot in education, in human development for everybody, including girls. But I think the theme is also an acknowledgement that we have some unfinished business. Yes, we have made progress as a global community, and indeed here in the Caribbean, a lot of progress has also been made, but we still see that there are gaps. I'll give you an example. If you take the issue of the subjects that girls are studying as an example, you will see that sometimes girls tend to be in the care-related subjects, hospitality-related subjects, subjects that lead them to certain professions. And so we're recognizing that while we have made all this progress in educating our girls, we need now to ask ourselves, what skills are we imparting? How do these skills prepare the girls for a very complex and globalized village? So that is what this theme is all about. It is challenging us to look at how are we investing in our girl children in order to equip them to be relevant and fit for purpose in the 21st century.
This sounds like a very important theme. Is this the only day that we can talk about these issues?
Oh, not at all. Actually, when you reflect on the whole Sustainable Development Agenda, you will recognize that at the core of the Sustainable Development Agenda is that we should leave no one behind, which means we should not leave any girl behind as well. And so this theme is really linked and is part and parcel of the overall drive towards achieving the goals and aspirations that are in the Sustainable Development Goal Agenda, the 2030 Agenda. It's also linked to the very reason why the UN exists, and that is being the advocate for human rights. So when we talk about the International Day of the Girl Child, it's really fundamentally about human rights, and that girls' rights are human rights, and therefore they also deserve special attention.
You raised a very important point about the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Could you share more details for persons who might not be aware of this agenda and what that means?
Okay. So the Sustainable Development Agenda is an ambitious global commitment. All our countries signed up to it. It has 17 goals, and at the core of those goals is really about giving opportunities for people to be the best that they can be, for people to achieve the best that they can achieve. It has at its center the focus on people and how we invest in human capital. It also has at the center the environment, how we care for the environment, because this is the only environment we have. We cannot migrate, and therefore how are we taking care of our environment? it also has goals that are linked to partnership, recognizing that the challenges that we face today are so complex. They cannot be solved by one country or one continent or one agency, and that these challenges really require strong partnerships, and they require that we do business differently. So in short, there are 17 goals covering different aspects from poverty reduction, gender equality, environment, partnership, as well as sustainable financing. So these are the ranges of the development goals. It is really a very ambitious agenda, but it is one which is achievable if we are committed. If we are committed to doing things radically differently, if we are committed to building new partnerships, and if we are committed to investing in hearing the voices who are not usually heard when we talk of global solutions, and that includes young people.
You mentioned the voices that aren't usually heard when we talk about solutions and the various challenges that we face. Can you tell us what are some of the challenges, the main challenges facing young girls in Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean?
So among the challenges that our young people are facing, I think the whole issue of opportunities. If you look at the unemployment figures as an example, we all go to school with the hope that when we finish our degrees, when we finish our qualification, there will be an opportunity, if not to work for somebody or for an organization, at least to create your own employment. But today, sadly, unemployment figures are going up, and it doesn't look like the trend is stopping. This is the case in the Caribbean, but it's also a global trend. So unemployment is an issue. And then you also look at the informalization of work. So a lot of our young people, including girls, they finish their training, their qualification, and sometimes find themselves in the informal sector, a sector that also has its own challenges in terms of the standards, the remuneration, and the conditions of service sometimes. So these are some of the challenges that our young girls are experiencing. And then I talked earlier about opportunities. The fact that our girls usually go into certain training disciplines, which automatically channel them to certain professions, that in itself is an issue. And so today we are talking about how can we promote for our girls to do science, technology, engineering, mathematics, because these are some of the subjects that can also help to prepare them for a career that is relevant in the 21st century. We are living in a global village. We are living in a very innovative world, a world that is automated, and therefore the skills that we teach our children should equip them to compete with any other child in another part of the world. And it should prepare them for a world that is dynamic, an information age, and an age of technology. And so those are some of the areas I think we need to revisit to see whether we are creating those opportunities. I think our education system here in the Caribbean, and I think many people will agree, that we need to reform the education system. We need to ensure that the curriculum is relevant, the curriculum is dynamic, it evolves to suit the changing context in which we are operating. And it is really a context where our children have to be competitive. Our girls need to be competitive. So to achieve that, the education we give them should open doors and not be the same education that I got, because that was then. But today the challenges are different, and really we need to reform our curriculum and make it fit for the 21st century.
What role do you see the UN playing in addressing some of these issues that you've outlined?
Well, the UN is already addressing these issues. We have here in the Caribbean our United Nations Multi-Country Sustainable Development Framework. Now, this is the framework that is guiding the UN support to the Caribbean for a period starting 2017 to 2021. And in that framework, we have articulated very clearly how we should invest in human capital. And that includes investing in girls. We have articulated the importance of having an education system and education curriculum that is relevant, that is fit for purpose, and which is dynamic and responsive to the needs of the market. And then on the employability aspect, we are concerned that when our children graduate, they should have the skill sets that are relevant. And so we are looking into what are those skill sets that are required. And for us to answer that question, we need to engage the employers. Who are the employers? Is the private sector? Yes, to some small extent, the public sector, but really and truly, we need to strengthen our partnership with the private sector, because ultimately, that is the engine for creating jobs, and that is the engine that can absorb some of our graduates. But they can only absorb them if they are bringing the right skill sets. So those are some of the issues we're looking into. We have different agencies in the UN. We have UNICEF and UNESCO, who look at issues of education and its relevance. We have the International Labour Organization that looks at transition from the education system into the workforce. We have other agencies like UNDP, like UN Women. Many agencies are looking at this whole issue of empowering girls, positioning girls so that they can contribute to a stronger and competitive Caribbean.
So we see that the UN is doing work. We understand that the private sector has a role to play. Who are some of the other actors, and how can they support our mission to have a strong girl force?
I think governments, of course. We cannot talk about development of any country, any region, indeed global development, without ensuring that the governments are driving the agenda and they're creating the space for different ideas to come together so that we have programs that are relevant and fit for purpose. So I think governments are key partners, and of course specifically the ministries of education, the ministries that are responsible for innovation, for technology, for empowerment. All those ministries are critical. Civil society. And here I'm talking of universities, and it's not a mistake that we are sitting here at the University of the West Indies. So I think universities have a fundamental role in bringing about the reform and the changes that are required in this region, and indeed globally. So I see universities as key partners because they are really think tanks. They can help us to come up with ideas that the private sector can invest in, and that governments can create policies, legislation, which creates space for everything to come together. So universities are critical. Development banks are important because at the end of the day, good ideas require resources. And I think partnership with development banks like the Caribbean Development Bank is strategic, and I'm aware that the Caribbean Development Bank has been investing in gender assessments, which really give us concrete evidence on how are we performing when it comes to achieving gender equality in the region. And so partnership with such institutions, I think, is very critical for us to holistically address gender disparities in the region.
So we can better see how CSOs, private sector, development banks, and the UN all have a role to play, and of course government. I think of the students who are watching us today on UETV and are wondering, well, what role can I play? How can I take an action that makes a difference? What would you say to them?
I would say join us. This is not an agenda for agencies, for governments, for partners out there. It's really about how our individual action, our individual decision, our individual voices can make a difference. So it is about, if you believe in a world that is just, if you believe that everybody deserves a chance to be given the best opportunity, you should be supporting International Day of the Girl Child, because it's about recognizing the human rights of girls. It's about recognizing their right to be given opportunities to be the best that they can be. And then it's also about creating space for girls to contribute towards a better and empowered and competitive Caribbean. So this is an agenda for everybody. It's about you, it's about me, it's about everybody out there. We need to lend our voice to this issue, and we need to know that by doing this, we are contributing towards a better and stronger Caribbean region.
Yeah. And International Day of the Girl Child is one day a year, but I know that there's actions that they can take every day.
Absolutely.
Where can they go to learn more?
I guess there are many platforms. I mentioned earlier we are in an information age. I would invite people who want to learn more about this. They can visit our websites. I know that with the UN we have a website where we share resources. Different UN agencies also have their websites. Governments have their websites where they talk about some of the programs that they are implementing. I don't see this as a one-day event. In fact, our hope is that this is just a culmination of our ongoing advocacy about the importance of investing in girls, because they are a key part of humanity and they can contribute to our collective objectives and goals. So throughout the year, we need to be focusing on how are we creating that space and opportunities for our girls.
So we would have spoken a great deal on International Day of the Girl Child, which will be celebrated on October 11th. And as we know, the UN will also be recognizing the 16 days of activism at the end of November. How do you see these themes tying into each other and an opportunity to continue the discussion?
Yes. So the link between International Day of the Girl Child and 16 days of activism is a sad reminder that a lot of our girls are exposed to violence and abuse. And so the 16 days of activism is another rallying call which says we have to have a zero tolerance to violence, zero tolerance to abuse. So the two are linked, but they are linked in a sad kind of way, because it is a reminder that in our region, 1 in 3 girls experience some form of sexual abuse before they turn 18 years old. It could have been you, it could have been me, it could have been you too. It is someone's child, it is someone out there whose life is shattered. And that's what 16 days of activism is all about. It's not just about girl children. We also recognize that women experience violence. And often there's a link between the women who experience violence and the girls who experience violence. There is a vicious cycle. So we need to look at it holistically, how we can address violence in all its forms and all the people who are impacted by violence. But having said this, I think we're also seeing progress being made in, first of all, recognizing that violence is an issue in our community and we need to address it. We are also seeing progress in terms of our laws, in terms of programs, policies that are aimed at addressing these issues. But we are not yet there. We need to continue to draw attention to the ugly fact that women and girls experience violence, often at the hands of people who are very close to them. And that is a sad reality.
And we also mentioned that girls' rights are human rights. That's what we started the conversation with, and I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about that and how we can commemorate that this year as well.
Well, when you talk about rights, what comes to your mind? Health?
Yes, education.
Education, protection, a right for you to be heard, your voice, your views. Those are some of the rights. We really have to break it down to the simplest denomination. When we talk of rights, it's not about issues that are out there. It's really about day-to-day realities. People have a right to education. They have a right to learn in protective environments. They have a right to be the best that they can be, which means they need to be given opportunities. So that's what the rights are all about. And so the link is that girls, like everybody else, have rights too. They have a right to education. They have a right to be heard. They have a right to make decisions that are in their best interest. So that's what this is all about. And when we commemorate 70 years of human rights, it's really about how have we fared, how have we performed in terms of making sure this is a reality, a lived reality for everybody, including girls.
So we did speak about the Sustainable Development Goals, and you offered wonderful explanation on those 17 goals. And we do know that one of the goals speak to gender equality and also decent work and economic growth. And I see this year's theme definitely tying into that with her A Skilled Girl Force. Could you elaborate more on what that would mean for us by 2030 here in Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean? What would that look like, having a skilled girl force?
I think if we are to take a look at 2030, I think a skilled girl force means that we have more and more girls that are doing subjects that are currently not easily accessible to them. I talked earlier about science, technology, engineering, mathematics. It would be, the ideal is that by 2030, we are seeing a shift where more girls are being given the opportunity to study these subjects, because we know that once they have studied these subjects, we are preparing them for a career in those areas. We are talking of an age of innovation, an age of technology. A skilled girl force in 2030 means that we have girls with skills to be active participants in fields that are relevant for society. Technology, coming up, engineering, designing. Why not? Girls can do it, but they need to be given the opportunity. And once they are given the opportunity, and once we as parents, and here I am addressing myself and the other parents, we need to make our girls appreciate that they can achieve anything. The sky is the limit. We have to believe in them, we have to encourage them, and we have to stop pushing our girls into certain fields because that's how we grew up. Really, this is the time for dreams to come true. Let's make the dreams come true. Create the space. Equip our girls. Provide the opportunities. 2030 will surprise us if we do these things, because girls can do it. I believe firmly that there is nothing that can stop girls from achieving these goals if they are given an opportunity. So let's invest in them. Let's have confidence. Let's trust them that they can do it and empower them to do it. And we will be a better community with girls who are empowered. We'll be a stable and resilient community when we invest in our girls.
Well, this was a very strong call to parents, to students, to educators, to politicians to stand with her and to help us create a skilled girl force. And I hope everyone listening today will do that.
I hope so. It's about everybody. It's about you and I, everybody out there. We all have a role to play.
Well, with that, I think that is an extremely positive note to end on. And we'd like to thank Muriel for being here today and for sharing such an inspirational message for International Day of the Girl Child, and also in recognition of human rights and the 16 days of activism. So thank you, Muriel.
Thank you very much.
And to my colleague, Shari.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To our viewers, thank you for watching. This is UETV.
Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this program. Remember, you can watch this and all our programs on our website, www.uitv.org, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device. Also, join the conversation on social media by visiting our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages.